Carbs have gotten a bad rap. Bagels, breads, pasta, oats, fruit, it's all bad for you, right? Well, what if I was to tell you that not all carbs are created equal? In today's video, we are going to bust the myth on carbohydrates, and I'm going to show you how to make carbs healthy again. So stick around to the end, but before we get started, I'm Dr. Zyrowski, and thanks for hanging out with me in another great video. You know, we've been told that we need to count carbs by the gram and avoid them at all costs. But the truth is, and what's missing is the bigger picture, and that is how the carb is going to react in your body. So let's look at this behavior of different types of carbohydrates, starting with simple, and then we'll go to complex carbs, and then we'll go to fiber. These are the three main categories of carbs that we're dealing with. Now, our simple carbs are going to be the carbs that are super easy to digest, and they're typically coming from poor quality food in the average individual's diet. We're looking at soda, candy, white bread, ultra processed foods, your refined cereals, for instance. Now, we also have some healthier versions of simple carbs. Not all simple carbs are bad, right? A healthier version may be fruit or maple syrup or something like honey, which, as long as it's used in moderation, is completely fine for you. Now, we're also going to have our complex carbs, okay? So we did simple carbs, now we're moving to complex carbs. Complex carbs are going to be the carbs that are going to require more time to digest. And what you're going to see here is that the longer it takes to digest the carb, the more stable your blood sugar will be, okay? So simple carbs are going to give you more of that blood sugar spike. Complex carbs are not. Some examples of complex carbs are going to be sweet potatoes, carrots, beets, squash, celery, that type of thing, okay? And then there's the third category, and that's going to be our fiber. Now, fiber is a carbohydrate that cannot be digested by the body, but it plays a really critical role in your digestive health and blood sugar regulation, brain health, heart health, and so many other things. So it's important to make sure that we're getting lots of fiber in because it's good for us, okay? And whenever you look at counting carbohydrates, you really should subtract the fiber from it, right? That's why when doing the ketogenic diet, you count net carbs. You take your carbohydrates, you subtract the fiber amount from it, and then you have your net carbs that you're consuming. So as we look at this conversation of carbohydrates, it's important to realize that not all carbs are bad, and carbs actually have some benefits in our body, which we'll get to in just a second. Now, also, this is something that is very important to understand, is that your health in your lifestyle matters as to how you look at carbohydrates. First of all, there's nothing that excites me more than watching an argument on social media of a former diabetic and a highly active meathead in the gym, right? Arguing about carbohydrates as if they're doing the same thing in each other's bodies, right? If you're somebody who is suffering from insulin resistance, you have metabolic syndrome like high cholesterol, high blood pressure, fatty liver, you are going to look at carbs very different than somebody who is healthy, active, in the gym all the time with no health issues. If you're the individual who's suffering with a health problem, you actually may really want to go low carb for a period of time in order to lower inflammation in your body and heal. This is something that's highly beneficial. So remember that how you approach carbohydrates is going to very much depend on your health, your level of activity, your lifestyle. And also, it doesn't matter whether you're healthy or not, you should still make sure that you're focusing on eating the healthier carbs. But the thing that can be a little bit hard is making this advice very practical so that you can implement it into day-to-day living. Well, I want to give you 4 factors that actually make a carb healthy. The one is going to be the fiber content, right? Because the fiber is going to slow the digestion of it, and it's also going to have tons of benefits, as I mentioned before, like gut health benefits. So we want to make sure that we're eating carbs with fiber in it. Next is the processing of the carbohydrate itself, okay? Some of the simple examples, the most simple examples we could look at are going to be bread, for instance. Think of a whole wheat bread versus a white bread, right? Obviously, the whole wheat bread that is going to be possibly made from ancient grains, that's going to be something that's going to take a lot longer to digest and break down in the body and not spike our blood sugar. Here's another good example. instant oatmeal versus oats that have to cook on the stove for 30 minutes, they are going to react completely different in the body. And it's important to understand that most people go towards the instant oatmeal, and this is going to be a sugar bomb in your body and not going to be particularly healthy for you. Another thing that's important to understand about carbohydrates and consuming them is basically how you pair your food. When you pair carbohydrates with proteins and some fats, it's going to support you not having that big blood sugar spike. So that's a highly beneficial thing to do. And then also just think of your carbohydrates from the standpoint of man-made versus nature, okay? A man-made carbohydrate is typically going to be highly and ultra processed. You're thinking your candy bars, your bagels, your pastas, that sort of thing, versus something that's coming directly from nature, okay? So we have to make sure that we're breaking our carbs down and really understanding what we're consuming. As I mentioned from the onset of this conversation, that somebody's health did not get destroyed by eating healthy carbohydrates. Everyone's health that is destroyed and obese and suffering from metabolic syndrome as a result of carbohydrates is from eating very poor quality and low nutrient dense carbohydrates. Now, why quality of carbs actually matters, okay? First of all, if you're consuming good quality carbs, this is going to be beneficial for supporting physical performance. And I point this out because so many health gurus that kind of fall in my category on the internet were telling people, don't ever eat carbs, ketogenic diet or nothing else. Follow the carnivore diet. They became very famous for these very demanding approaches to lifestyle and eating. But the fact is that they actually have benefits in the body. These carbohydrates, like I said, support physical performance. So whether it's going to the gym or maybe you're someone who's highly active in your day-to-day job, your work, right? It's going to support that physical performance on the job. Next, you're going to find that it's actually going to feed the good gut bacteria. These prebiotics that come from carbohydrates are very beneficial for keeping a good, healthy, and well-balanced microbiome in your gut. These carbohydrates will also help with hormone regulation and your mood. And then one of the reasons I think that carbs are also very important is because they're going to improve the quality of sleep. As a quick tip, you can actually go and focus putting your carbs later on in the day at nighttime so that you can improve your quality of sleep. So this is something that's going to be beneficial as well. So when you start pulling carbs out of your diet, you can tend to find that these categories are going to struggle. Your gut health, your hormone health, your mood, your physical performance, and also your quality of sleep. Putting carbs back in will improve upon these areas. Now, let's talk about some practical swaps, right? Once again, bringing this information to real life. Well, instead of eating white bread, let's focus on eating sprouted, whole grain, organic sourdough. When you eat that sourdough bread, it even has a lesser amount of gluten in it, which is going to be beneficial as well. Instant oatmeal, switch from that to steel cut oats. Oatmeal is a huge favorite of so many people, but move on to steel cut oats. It's going to be a better option if you're going to use that as a carb. White rice, another food that people love. Well, instead of eating white rice, switch to red rice or even quinoa. This is going to be so much healthier for you and a better quality carb. And then also sugary cereals. So many people wake up every day starting their breakfast with a sugary cereal. How about berries and yogurt, right? So we can start making these simple changes to better carbohydrates. In this way, we can still have carbs in our life. We don't have to go to these extreme diets of carnivore or even going towards the keto end of the spectrum. These diets can have benefits depending on your current state of health or what you're trying to accomplish. However, when we think that this is the only way we can live, it's typically not going to suit you well or have long-term health benefits. If you have paid attention over the years of all the people who have come on the internet and touted nothing but the carnivore diet, most of them are no longer doing the carnivore diet because they realize this doesn't work very good long-term. In the short term, it can be very therapeutic. Long-term, no bueno. So moving on from that, let's talk about the time of carbohydrates. First, we want to make sure that we're timing our carbohydrates right so that we can get the best blood sugar control throughout the day and not get those big spikes and just feel good overall. Now, one thing that you can do if you're eating carbohydrates is time the carbohydrates throughout the day at a time when you can go and exercise after that meal. And exercise literally just means, well, it could be going to the gym, or it could be a simple 30-minute walk after your dinner. All the time, my wife and I like to go for a walk after dinner, and I like this not only because it's a great time to reconnect, but also it's a great time to focus on bringing our blood sugar down after a meal. Because you know what I like to do? I like to put all of my carb consumption at nighttime because it's going to improve the quality of my sleep. So I don't have carbs for breakfast. I don't have carbs for lunch. I have carbs for dinner because it improves the quality of my sleep, and I really like that. Now, also, another thing that you can do is start your meals with vegetables and proteins and fats, okay? And then from there, you put your carbs after those. So let's say that you have a plate of food, you eat your vegetables, you eat your meat, you eat, the fats on your plate, and then after all of that, you eat your potato and some of the carbs, maybe the sourdough bread that you had. And this is going to be good because you are going to have a lesser blood sugar spike as a result of eating those carbs. So it's going to blunt the blood sugar spikes and help buffer the digestion process of that carb. So these are some ways that you can time your carbs more appropriately. So remember, at the end of the day, we don't need to blame carbs. We just need to make carbs healthier, and we have to make sure that we're taking into consideration the best time to eat them, what type of carbs to eat, the processing, how they're going to behave in our body. And when we take all that into consideration, oh my gosh, life becomes so much easier, and we don't have to fall into these categories of thinking we need to do these very strict diets that never allow carbs. We can have carbs in our diet, and we can feel good from consuming them, and also simplify our lifestyle in a big way. Now, real quick, if you're a big fan of this type of information and healthy, natural living, I run a community online called Health Club. We not only talk about how to eat for good health, but also what kind of tests you should take. We really break down a lot of the myths you see today around cholesterol and heart health and gut health. We teach you how to do things right? I take the tools and the tactics that I use clinically every day, and I give them to you in Health Club so that you can live a better life. So if you want to be part of Health Club, click on the link in the description below, and I hope to see you there because our goal is to grow this community of like-minded individuals so that you can become healthier every single day. Click on the link below and join me over at Health Club today.